It's a peculiar kind of essay. The rationale is actually an explanation and a defense of, in this case, your plan of study. It's that simple. You're writing an essay to explain to other people who are not familiar with you what your plan of study is, and to defend the selection of studies that you've included in your plan. And whether you're doing an associate degree or a bachelor's degree, this is what this essay does. And the college says if you're presenting 2 degrees, both an associate and a bachelor's degree, single essay will do. Okay. I think what the issue is, though, is that most people in their lives don't have to defend in a formal way any actions that they want to take. People just do it, and they do it because they want to do it, and that's it. And we're asking you, no, we want you to really think about what your plan of study is and why that plan of study is as it is. And there's a very simple reason for this, and this is where the connection is to Monday's talk. The college says, and treats very seriously, the idea that faculty here do not determine for you your curriculum of study. In traditional colleges, and particularly with 18 to 20-year-olds or 22-year-olds, the idea was and is that college faculty are in a position to and have the ability to determine what anybody learns. They may give students choices, but they've determined what those choices are to begin with. And the college here says, for all kinds of good scholarly reasons and for practical reasons, we do not know what you need to study. What we want from you is for you to tell us what you want to study, and then we'll think about what you said and see how much sense it makes, and if it makes sense, to say, go ahead. And so your rationale then is an argument for telling the college what you want to study over the next period, and the next period being until you hopefully until you graduate. A lot of people come to Empire State College without an intention of graduation or graduating. They may want individual courses or credits. They may want a number of credits for example, for career advancement, particularly in the police service or the fire service, and some other occupations as well. And we have no problem with that whatsoever. And that can be part of your rationale. But the idea is that you're basically explaining and defending your curriculum. The college has said, you will define your curriculum, you will determine your own curriculum. We will give you that permission, but it needs to be a solid, academically sound curriculum. And your rationale explains why your curriculum is solid and sound. Here's the background to this. When you present your plan of study you've presented your plan of study to your mentor, and your mentor has been working with you, presumably over weeks or months, whether in a study or a course, or whether informally, that you've been having conversations with your mentor. And your mentor has a good understanding of who you are and what you want to study and why you want to study particular or take particular courses and studies. But the college has different levels of authorization and review. So in a sense, you're given permission and the authority to design your own program. You then bring it to your mentor, and I'm not suggesting you're not interacting with your mentor on a continuous basis, so you're not necessarily bringing that program to your mentor as if the mentor knows nothing about it. But basically, you've looked at what you want to study. You bring this to your mentor. Your mentor says, it looks okay, let's bring it to the center, not just to me, which is your mentor, me, but to the center, and look for center permission and center authorization and center oversight. And then it goes to the college for college oversight of your program. The committee at the center level it consists of a number of faculty from across the various areas of study. They're not all going to be in the area of study that you're interested in. If you're doing a degree in, say, BM&E, not all the members of the committee will be members of the area of study of BM&E. Some might be in SMAT, in Science, Mathematics and Technology. Some might be historians. Some might be in cultural studies. Some might be in educational studies, human development, labor studies. Some might be in the nursing faculty. And they may have no idea what a good concentration in your area of study ought to look like. Your job is to explain to them your program. I think, and the important thing is that the faculty do not bring to the meeting when they're reading your program, you're reading your rationale. They're not bringing their own idiosyncratic ideas. They will leave that at the door when they come into the room when the meeting is being held. Let's say there's 2 or 3 members of the committee, and let's say they're members of BM&E. They put outside the door their hats and their expertise in BM&E, and they are supposed to read your program, your rationale, the degree plan. They read that cold. They don't say, we know what a concentration in X needs to look like, because they don't. And they're dependent very much on your rationale. The two important ideas here, I think I want to emphasize, is that you're designing a degree not in a discipline. You're not designing a degree, say, in psychology or in management or in accounting or sociology. You're designing a degree in an area of study. This college has moved away right from the very beginning from a discipline-based a silo of faculty within a particular discipline to requiring faculty to cross disciplines. So the areas of study are actually much broader than traditional conventional disciplines. So we don't have, say, a discipline of economics. It's in business management and economics. We don't have faculty in, say, a math department. It's science, mathematics, and technology. And so you're actually obtaining your degree in the area of study. Within that area of study, you're designing a concentration, not a major. And which is like, majors and concentrations are different. Majors need to cover everything that's viewed as significant in the topic from A to Z. Concentrations really are the flavor of that subject. So you don't have to cover everything, okay? Now here's the centerpiece. The 3 questions that I think every rationale needs to ask and answer. And this is really what the committee is focusing absolutely on when they read your rationale. You're telling the committee, what do I already know? What do I yet need to know? And how do I know this? And this, of how do I know this, is what you already know and what you need to know. So the committee wants to know what you already know, what you need to know, and what proof that you're presenting that those first 2 are valid. And so that if you include 1 and 2, you've covered the topic. What do I already know is your conversation or discussion in the rationale of transcript credits and your experiential learning. So you might say, and I'm kind of skipping over at the moment, I'll go back to it in much more detail in a moment, the degree plan itself. But in terms of the degree plan, these are the things I already know. I've attended other colleges in the past. I got credits in these particular areas. My experiential learning deals with X, Y, and Z. I'm going to be asking for credit for these areas, or I've already asked for credit and to be assessed in these areas. What do I yet need to know? That's going to be the studies you're going to be taking at Empire State College, or you want to cross-register at another college from here because we don't have the expertise in particular areas, but that you think that you need to know these subjects or to develop these skills or these competencies. And I think what you're saying is, when you say, how do I know this, that you've done what I would call due diligence in research into the degree that you're trying to design. And I'll go into that more in a second as well. What you're also saying, though, to the committee in the rationale is, I've done due diligence, I've done some research, and here is my research. I've also tested some of my findings. And I'm testing now my findings as well by presenting this to the committee. So if you think about the last part here, I'm still testing my ideas. You're presenting a proposal that you're asking other faculty who are I would say very sensitive readers of your rationale, sensitive readers of your degree plan, and you're asking them to be convinced that the research that you've done is adequate, and that the plan that's come out of this research is meaningful in terms of the research you've done. When I say that you've also tested in the past your findings, what I'm suggesting here is something like this. Let's say that you say, what are my goals when I get my degree from here? Let's say I'm doing a degree in historical studies, and I'm going to get a degree, I hope, in American history. And one of my goals is actually to go on to do graduate work. That's excellent. But then the committee might ask the question, okay, so let me see, can we see in your rationale that you've actually spoken to people in the admissions office of colleges that you might be interested in being admitted to see if they think also that the plan that you've designed meets their requirements, their expectations. So have you tested your ideas that way? Maybe you're saying, I'm doing a degree in human resource management because I want to become a specialist in, say, workplace development, training. And the committee might say, excellent, wonderful, but have you tested your ideas by actually presenting your program, say, to people in a corporation with a training department? And do they say that your degree looks, they're not necessarily hiring anybody at the moment, but these are the kind of skills and the competencies and the knowledge areas that they're looking for in someone with a baccalaureate degree, a 4-year degree, or an associate degree? Is this what they're looking for, or would they prefer that you have another kind of study in your program? And so, what kind of research, what kind of testing have you done of your ideas? What does the research often consist of that people do in educational planning? I think often there's mentors suggest, and certainly in many of the educational planning templates, there's an idea that you go to other college catalogs, other colleges, and look to see what they do in their curriculum. And I think one of the things that comes out of that is false concreteness that many students are blissfully unaware of that they're actually doing in their writing in their rationale. I think a lot of people go to other college catalogs, for example, and say, oh, you know, so College X says I should be, they require their students to take courses in A and B and C and D. And so I'm going to put those courses in my program. I haven't taken them yet. I've not been to this other college. In fact, I don't have anything similar on my degree program. But they say I need a study in, oh, I don't know, business ethics. So I'm going to take something like business law, and I'm going to say that business law is the same as business ethics. And it's like, well, that's fine. What gives? Why are you saying that business law is the same as business ethics? Are they the same? We had a program the other day where a student said, I need to take, say, theories of personality. I'm going to take a course from Center for Distance Learning on theories of personality because the catalog in the other college says that the students need to take a course on, say, abnormal psychology, and theories of personality is the same as abnormal psychology. And what the committee basically says is, it is? We don't think so. So I think the first place is, one of the dangers is not to get caught up in making assumptions that there's no support for in saying that course X is the same as course Y. Course X is the same as course X, and course Y is the same as course Y. There is incredibly rare that course X matches course Y. And I think that the false concreteness happens when you look at other colleges and try to emulate their curriculum by focusing on courses and trying to focus on something like a course match when there is no course match to be made. Much better, it seems to me, when you're writing your rationale, is to have a much more sensitive, deeper understanding of what the other colleges are doing. Forget the courses, forget the titles. Go look at the descriptions and ask yourself, what are they trying to inculcate their students with? You're looking not for the titles, but for the skills and the content that they are telling you, indicating, suggesting are important for people doing a degree in this kind of area. If you focus then on the skills and the competencies and the content of what they're doing, and then you bring that back and write in your rationale, these are the skills and the competencies that I think are important. And that's the key part. So that's what you're looking for, to develop in yourself the skills and the competencies you don't have. It is not you're trying to take this course or take that course. That's a totally separate issue. You may want to take a particular study to help, because that study contains that competence, because that study will help you develop that skill, because that course or that study will cover that content. But you may not know that quite at the moment. But the key part is to say, so for a concentration in X, in the area of study of Y, my research has shown I'm going to need these skills and these competencies. And that's what you really want to focus in on, in my opinion. So, okay, I see that Jerry has basically stood up in class and was asking a question. I find myself in a situation where I've completed my coursework that I think I'm required to complete through Empire State. This was done in collaboration with my mentor. The one thing I've left to complete is the degree plan and rationale essay. This is uncommon, and how likely is it that I will not have to take any further courses? It's not uncommon. It's not desirable, but it's not uncommon. Because often people come in with the hope that they only need to take at Empire State College, say, 32 credits. They've got a number of upper-level credits from other institutions. They've got or if they're doing a bachelor's degree, they've got the the 96 credits from either experiential learning or from coursework. And so there's not a lot of time, they think, at Empire State College. So they treat the, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, but they treat Empire State College almost like fast food, rather than somebody cooking something from scratch. And it's not like you might have to wait half an hour or 3/4 of an hour for your meal to be cooked, or an hour for it to be prepared. You want it in 5 minutes. Okay, but I think it's not uncommon. The committee, though, is not going to be, I think, it won't view itself as being held over any barrel, and I'm sure that you're not trying to do that. They're forced then to say you don't have any more time or space in your program, but there's a lot of gaps in the program, so we're going to approve the program anyway. Your curriculum needs to be a solid curriculum. If there are gaps in your program, there's two things you can do. You can either fill those gaps, or, and this is certainly one thing that I was going to talk about in a few minutes as well, you can change the title perhaps of your concentration. So let's say, I have no idea what your area of study or your concentration is, but let's say you were doing a concentration in accounting and you don't have any more space to put, say, something like, I don't know, auditing. Well, you know, there's an expectation outside the college that if someone says they've got a degree in BM&E with a concentration in accounting, they're able to do auditing. And if you can't demonstrate to the college that you've got knowledge in auditing, they may say, well, maybe it's accounting studies. It's a less robust program than you say you've got. But it's, you know, we can still say it's okay. It's not unreasonable, but it may not be the title that you think you've got. Or the committee may say, you know, you've done an excellent job. Okay, you're presenting your proposal after everything is here, but you know, your proposal is a good proposal. Your program's a good program. We don't have any problems. And that happens quite often too. Bob, at what point in our studies at Empire State College should a degree plan and rationale be done? Great question, Bob. The college says, it has a policy actually, that all students should present their program for review by committee when they still have 12 credits left. That's college policy. However, if you don't have a program in place, then the college doesn't know whether you've got 12 credits left, or no credits left, or 30 credits left. So it can't actually, it's got this policy, but it can't actually police its own policy. So the college also says then, you should present your program at the most appropriate time for you. If that's earlier in your career at the college, so be it. If it's later in your career at the college, so be it. If it's very late in your career with the college, so be it. And you won't be penalized for presenting it earlier or later. Presenting it at the right time is probably the best time. And it's like saying, how long should a piece of string be? It needs to be as long as you need to wrap whatever it is you're tying. So, you know, present your program at the best time. Keelan's got a question? Okay. Keela asked, to piggyback on what Jerry asked, what if you get to the point and you've finished most of your credits and you've written a rationale defending the classes you've taken and it doesn't meet that degree plan? Do they say, well, it meets this degree and you decide to graduate under another degree or have to take more classes which means spend more money? It's an interesting question, Keela, because I'm not sure I understand it. The rationale needs to defend and explain the program that you're presenting. Now, clearly what often happens is that, let's say someone's written a rationale today, and they're presenting the program today. And over the course of the next few weeks, they make some changes to the program. Let's say it comes to my office and we say, you know, you can't actually use a particular set of credits from this particular institution because you didn't get awarded sufficiently high grades. Let's say you got D grades, so you're going to remove those credits from your program. And then You say, okay, so I have to remove those, and I'll add in new ones. And we say, fine, not a problem. But you haven't spoken about those. But that's okay. I think that's okay if it's a minor differences. Maybe you put down some institution was quarter credits. Like these are quarter credits are courses which last 10 weeks. And we say, actually those were semester credits. They lasted 15 weeks. And a semester credit is actually 2/3 of a quarter credit is only 2/3 of a semester credit. Semester credit is a third bigger than quarter credit. So you actually have more credits in your program than you think. And you say, whoa, that's wonderful. I'm going to take out some Empire State College studies. And so we say, okay, fine, not a problem. And so you take them out, but your essay still talks about those subjects. I think the committee can understand when they see the communication that takes place between you and my office and your rationale, where and why those credits are missing from your program. They may say, we prefer you to take out other credits, and that's another issue. But they are not necessarily going to hold you, credit for credit, line for line, to explain every single thing in your program. However, let's say you designed a BM&E degree in, say, management, and then but what you've done over time is to change that to I don't know, a BS in nursing, but you're using that rationale to defend the nursing program. That won't fly. If you're presenting a new degree, you need to present a new rationale. The committee is not in a position to understand your program. The one time that you don't need to present a new rationale is if you present your rationale and your program to committee, and the committee looks at the program and says, this is not really a management concentration, for example, but this might be more like, say, human resource management, or it might be more like business management rather than, quote, management. Or you said it was a business administration. The committee says, this isn't business administration. This is really more like, I don't know, concentration in, let's say, international business or something. Then the committee has said your program is more like international business. Then they're not asking you to rewrite your essay so you defend their view of your program. They basically said, we've looked at your rationale. We don't think it really convinces us that your program is about X. We think it's more about Y. And we are willing to approve your program if you agree that it's Y. If you want to say that, no, you disagree with the committee, it really is like the way you said it was, then you might have to rewrite your rationale to explain that. But if the committee is offering an alternate title, they're not asking you to, typically they don't ask you to rewrite your essay to defend their understanding. I don't think there's any more questions on the. Okay. I think one of the important things is the rationale essay, if I speak about that more in terms of the construction, as it were, it needs to be grammatically sound. You need to make sure the spelling is correct and there's no kind of unique choices of spelling. Or if you use spell check that you've not, the word T-H-E-I-R is spelled correctly, even though you mean T-H-E-R-E or T-H-E-Y apostrophe R-E. They are. So sometimes you have to check the spell check, but the point is your essay needs to be grammatically and sound, as it were. Rochelle is asking, how long does the rationale essay have to be? Again, that's like, how long does a piece of string need to be? In my view, your rationale needs to be as long as what it takes to answer, what do I need to know? What do I know? What do I need to know? And how do I know it? When you answer those three questions, that's the end of the rationale. And again, if you're going to say, I want a degree in X, and this is what I want to do with my degree, the committee might say, well, the degree is really sound. You've presented a good argument for the degree. We've got no problem with it. But you say you want to do, this. You want to become a teacher with this degree. Have you looked at what the New York State Education Department requires for people who want to go into a Master of Arts in Teaching? If you haven't done that, then maybe this program does not meet your goals. So you need to show that you've done due diligence in the research that you're doing. You can't simply say, this degree is my degree, and it's a good degree because I say so. Because you say so is not the justification for the committee to accept your degree. What the committee wants to know is, what research have you done? And as I say, if you choose to look at other colleges, if you interview experts in the field, if you interview other faculty, these are all legitimate ways to determine what should be in your degree. Sometimes the various associations have, professional associations have documents that they talk about the kind of skills and the competencies they look for in terms of the degree of graduating students who are going to go into the field. So I would look at those too. The key point is that you've done due diligence in the research that you're doing, and your degree cannot be it's based simply on you saying, because I think so. There are some degrees where you have an enormous amount of freedom for designing your degree, because there are no professional expectations. There are no academic expectations for the particular concentration you're developing. It may be something you're doing purely out of interest. And that's fine. That's okay. I think you can talk about that too. However, for every area of study that we have, there are guidelines for those areas of study, and you need to treat those areas of study seriously. These are basically the way that we've presented ourselves to the New York State Department of Education. We are accredited as a college which can offer degrees in New York. That's the outside of SUNY. We're accredited as an institution that can award degrees in New York because our areas of study have been approved. And so if the student degree planning guide talks about the expectations for social structure, social theory, and change, you need to treat those seriously. Because if you're designing a social theory, structure, and change degree, it cannot look like a human development degree, or it cannot look like a BM&E degree, or an interdisciplinary studies degree. Each one of those are unique, and the Department of Education has said so, and they have to remain different from each other. Presumably there's some kind of flexibility, and there's some kind of sharing of some ideas. If you look and see many of the competencies that each of the areas of study looks for are very, very similar in many ways. But the type of approaches that you need to take to design the program is very different, say, if you're looking at an interdisciplinary studies degree from, say, a social structure theory and change degree or a cultural studies degree. Okay. I think the other thing is that if I go back for the moment to when you look at other colleges and the notion of false concreteness, what people often do, and I think, and that kind of, to me, I don't know if all committee members agree with me here, but to me, it's very obvious as a sense of false concreteness when you look at different colleges. Say you pick 2 or 3 different colleges, and and if you pick legitimate colleges, regionally accredited colleges that have recognized programs in the area that you're looking at, as opposed to rolling a dice and then picking a particular college because that happens to be one you've heard of, turned up in Google or something like this. But if you've actually looked at different college programs because you know something about those programs or those colleges and the programs that they offer, then I think you would find, if you really look at more than a surface level, they're actually often very different. They're not very much the same. And so when you try to show how similar they are, I think you're telling the college, you know what, a concentration in X always looks like whatever. A concentration in literature always has these same things in it. Well, actually, it doesn't. And concentrations in management don't always have the same things in it. And concentrations in psychology do not always cover the same things in it. So if you force all the colleges to look the same when they clearly don't look the same, then you're putting yourself in a, it's not a rationale that you're presenting. You're basically doing somersaults to try to prove something that cannot be proven. And you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot, if I can use that metaphor, because I think one of the strengths then you have available to you, one of the freedoms, is to say, you know, I've looked at 3 different colleges, and actually they're quite different. They don't expect you to cover the same areas, but the competencies that they're looking for are quite similar. Not the courses, the competencies, and the skills. And so I think that's what you want to try to get at. I think also a very important thing, and I'm maybe looking for more questions after I say this. Again, another issue of false concreteness. The Centre for Distance Learning produces a catalogue. The Centre for Distance Learning's catalogue is not a traditional catalogue. In every other college with a closed curriculum, that is where the college faculty determine what the curriculum is for every student, their catalogue is an account of their degree, or their degrees. At Empire State College, our catalogue, in my opinion, is for courses where more than about 20 people a semester, or around about 20 people, 25 people a semester are interested in a group type study. If only 1 or 2 people are interested in a group type study, that study will not appear in our catalogue, period. What that means is that you cannot go to the catalogue and say, I've taken every course in a particular concentration, because every course I've taken is in the CDL catalogue. There are no more courses for me to take. So I must have covered the topic. And my response to that is, that's not clear at all. If the courses are not based on a notion of covering the material, but based on, for example, having something like 15, 20, 25 people wanting to take a study a term, then that's why it will be in the catalogue, not because it covers the discipline or covers the area. So if you think, because of your research, that a particular study is important to you, then there are a number of ways that you can actually get that study undertaken. And the committee is going to be looking for that. Because one way you can do it is to have an independent study. And that might mean going to faculty outside, either inside CDL to offer you a one-on-one, a particular study. It might mean that they will tweak their course, which is quite unusual. They'll tweak their course to enable you to take it in a unique kind of way. It may mean that you go to other faculty across the college for a totally independent study. It may mean you go to the faculty across the college for an independent study. That's slightly different, because an independent study you might be doing with other people. A totally independent study might mean that you're doing it only with this other member of faculty, and it's only you who's doing it, and it will never be done again, and that's a very strong possibility, and a good possibility. Or you may say, I want to cross-register. I need a particular study. It's not offered at Empire State College. It is offered in another institution. It's either offered at a distance, or I live in that kind of area, close to the other place, and maybe the Empire State College can arrange with you and with the other college for you to take the study there. If the study is needed in your program because your program needs that study, and you know this because of your research, you can't ignore that. It's not good scientific method to say, I've got some data, I'm actually going to shove it under the carpet because I can't deal with it. That is a proof of poor scientific method, not quality scientific method. And the rationale in your degree program needs to show, in a sense, that you're very familiar. Even if you're in cultural studies, you're familiar with the scientific method. You can do observation. You can then collect the data from the observation. You can then deal with the data from the observation. And then you deal with it in an appropriate way. Hiding it under the carpet and saying, well, CDL doesn't offer this, so I'm not going to do it, is not an appropriate way to deal with a study that your own research has shown that you perhaps need to study. Jay's asking a question. Are independent studies one-on-one mentoring available in the CDL or only at nearby ESC centers? I believe that as a single college, CDL is, I believe, and maybe going on a limb here, is required to offer you independent studies, one-on-one. I think many of the faculty here find it incredibly, because of the type of work they do with learning at a distance, they find it incredibly difficult to do. So it may take some negotiation between you and your mentor and members of faculty. But and they will do what they can to help you get the study done. But if you're a CDL student, then it seems to me it doesn't matter whether the study is offered at CDL or offered, say, in Rochester. If they're willing to do it at a distance, then it's, as far as you're concerned, it's the same thing. It's only an issue internally whether the faculty member is located through CDL, and that faculty member may be in Texas, you know, or the faculty member is coming from Rochester, and or from maybe the faculty members in Lebanon, for heaven's sake. So it's not, or Prague. It's not. I think it's not an issue as far as I'm concerned, whether it's offered through CDL or offered by CDL. And if the mentor who's doing the instruction is doing it at another center, Fort Drum or in Metro or in the Northeast Center, or even Saratoga Unit, I don't think it matters as far as you're concerned. I think it doesn't matter. What you're interested in is the study.
Could you ask if anybody else is experiencing breaking up of your...
Okay. Apparently some people are experiencing some breakup of my audio. Could you, anybody who's breaking up, could they put the red cross against their name? Do you see the red cross?
No, all of them. They say they are experiencing?
So you're experiencing, the people who are putting a red cross are experiencing poor audio.
It could be that we're having bandwidth problems here. I know we had problems earlier today.
I hear from Teresa that we may be having bandwidth problems.
Cross indications will drop out. Yeah. Okay. No, we're sorry. I can't. There's nothing really we can do. It could be that it is just whatever reason communication issues.
Okay. So certainly we're apologizing if there's poor communication. I don't think we can do anything here. I think this is either an Illuminate problem or something to do with our internet service. Okay, Stephanie. If you have a concept for a degree, but you can't find any other example of that type of degree in another school, but bits and pieces, how do you know what to call your concentration or how to present the concept for the degree? It seems like I'm getting a mixed degree of business, art, and eco-studies. It's a good question. I think the issue is this. First of all, I think you want to from what you're saying here, you're getting a mixed degree of business, art, and eco-studies. It would sound like you're doing something I have no idea though, in interdisciplinary studies. So you need to address the area study guidelines. But I think also, if your title is not a bread and butter title, it's not one that it's one that's you're being creative about, I think you have a lot more freedom to develop content. I think again though, what you want to do is focus on not the courses, but the skills and the content that you believe are important for you to know. And I think presenting those skills and that content and being able to provide some justification for it, which goes beyond because I say so, is important. I'm just trying to think of a good metaphor. It would be something like, I think, If I said, you know, what we're going to have for dinner, I'm going to offer you dinner, and what dinner is going to consist of is ice cream as the first course, it's going to be donuts as the second course, and it's going to be fruit as the third course. And you know what? Because these are 3 courses, it's a 3-course meal, because I say it is. And I think, but if somebody could say, but yeah, but is that kind of nutritious? Are you saying that's kind of beyond the menu from now on, or is this like a one-off event, or you know, what's my argument for showing that this is a reasonable meal? I think I would be hard pressed to say this was a reasonable meal. But if I said, you know, this is really dessert, well, it's not a meal I'm offering, it's dessert. And I think you could say, oh, so now it begins to make more sense. It's not, you know, a meal was something different, but you're offering dessert. Okay, that makes kind of sense. Is that the question? Oh, Jay. Jay's asking, roughly how many credits does it take in specifically concentrating on the concentration of your degree for it usually to be accepted by the committee? Oh, the college has a policy. A concentration cannot be less than, pardon me, cannot be less than 24 upper level credits. And those 24 upper level credits must be integrated. They must be part of a single unity, a kind of a holistic program. It can't simply be 24 upper level credits. There has to be a kind of a theme. It's a concentration, it's a theme to those 24. The college says, yeah, sometimes it could be as many as 36. It could be a little bit more sometimes. Certainly if you're doing a concentration in accounting, I'm not sure. I've never counted the number of upper level credits, but I think it could be something like 40 upper level credits when it comes down to it. In terms of what the accounting field requires of students who are graduating with a bachelor's degree in accounting. But I think if you think about it in terms of the very minimum is 24 upper level credits, then that's no committee will say it needs to be more than 24 if you're asking about numbers. 24 is the minimum. 24 to 36 is very reasonable. When you start getting something like 50 or 60, I think the committee is going to say, you know, you're kind of, this isn't really a degree. Metaphorically speaking, your degree is like a triangle with the concentration at the peak, but there's a solid base to a triangle. When you have a very large number of upper level credits in your concentration, what you've got is a pillar, a column, not a triangle. And the college views is we're a comprehensive college. So general learning is an important part of our thinking about a degree. You don't come in for job training. You come in to have various perspectives that you want to be able to come away with, which is, I think, a large part of general education, SUNY general education. We want you to come away not necessarily specifically with these, but kind of an historical perspective, a quantitative perspective on life, an historical perspective, understanding of other ways of thinking, other world civilizations, different ways of thinking that other civilizations have had, a kind of an ability to communicate with people in your field, with people outside of your field. I mean, I think one of the things that often in like people in emergency services or in business area, they both need to speak to people who are not in their field and need to understand people who are not in their field. And not having those kind of skills is a real barrier to their ability to progress in life. So I think we're really comfortable and happy that learning is not simply focused on your concentration. There's other areas to be which are important as well. Any other questions? Okay, so I only have a few more minutes left, I think. So I just want to say your rationale needs to be college level writing. It needs to be well organized. It needs to be, so the spelling and the grammar needs to be there. It needs to be well organized in terms of the way of thinking about the rationale. But it's really, when it comes down to it, it's an answer to 3 questions. What do I know now? What do I need to know? And how do I know it? And then the other thing is, what do I want to do? You know, what are my goals? Because what your goals are, and the goals might be just simply in terms of the education at Empire State College. I want a degree with a concentration in accounting. I want a concentration in sociology. I'm looking for a degree in interdisciplinary studies that deals with, I don't know, the ecological issues, you know, global warming. So what do I already know about the field? What do I yet need to know? And how do I know this? And if you can answer those 3 questions, you've done everything you need to do. And the answer to those 3 questions is the however long your concentration needs to be. It's not the story of your life. It's not you a kind of a confession. You know, I've been bad and now I'm good. It's not about that. It's you know, I've you know, missed opportunities, but now I understand where I need to be. It's not about that. It's what do I know? What do I yet need to know? And how do I know this? Answer those 3 questions. You've done everything you need to do, and the committee will applaud you as long as it's grammatically sound and well organized. Hope this was useful. One, two, three. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You're not hearing. Okay, but it's just a test. Just a test. I'm not hearing myself.
You're not hearing yourself.
No.
You know what was interesting though, Terry, you said Lisa kept coming in now.
Yeah.
That's what happened in our presentation earlier. We were through Illuminate, and people were dropping in and out, and they kept telling us. You're still on your mic, by the way. Refresh. They were being dropped.
What we needed a laptop or something in here to listen independently.
Yeah, here, and I talked about that the other day, right? Okay.
So you can see when you keep talking together.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Yeah, the thing is, we're not hearing you.
Hi everyone, this is just Terry. I'm just testing this out, so just ignore me. Or actually, if this is better, let me know if there's any crackling. We obviously had some crackling with, we were thinking maybe it might be the headset. But anyways, just let me know. Roger, are you still in there? Roger's not in there anymore. Yes, he is, Roger. Let me know, guys, while you're still in the Illuminate room if I'm crackling. Okay. It's better for you, Lisa? Okay. All right, I'm just wondering if it might have been the microphone and the headset and the microphone that might have been causing the crackling. All right. Just out of curiosity, the group that's still in here, are you staying in here for the 2 o'clock session as well? I'm assuming everybody is. All right, I'll do a test later on. Yes, okay. Just stay right there, and I'm going to be loading another PowerPoint. So, and I might be doing some testing. So, I apologize.
What we're going to cover today. First, we're going to talk about what is meant by the term study skills. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the ideal learning environment and the ideal learning time for study skills, some various different ways we can study, and an overview of common study skills area. We'll also take questions at the end. If there's something I'm talking about during a slide that you really don't understand, that you kind of can't hold that question for, or you think it's unclear, just go ahead and raise your hand or type it in the chat session, and Terry will let me know to get to that and to clarify things. There is a lot of information, so I'll try to cover it without speaking too quickly. But like Terry said, we're going to email the PowerPoint out to everyone too. So if you didn't quite catch something or we don't get through the whole thing, you will still have that information available to you. So when people think of study skills, typically the common response is that that's the way you study in the environment you study in. And that is correct, but there's also a lot of different other components to study skills. And I just want to cover some of those today so that you know other ways that you can hone in and certain things you can concentrate on to make sure that your quote-unquote study skills are up to par. Study skills also include your ability to manage your time, concentration, listening and note-taking skills, exam preparation, reading skills, writing skills, and even anxiety. So we're going to cover a lot of those today, particularly time management, concentration, and reading and writing skills. The other areas I probably won't focus on as much because they tend to not be as common a problem for adult and particularly online students. But if you need more information on those topics, feel free to let me know at the end of the session, and I can get in touch with you and give you some of that information. Sometimes if you're having a hard time studying, you're not sure what area it is that you're having a problem with. So I put a link down here to a study skills inventory. And it's a really quick little quiz that you can take, and it'll kind of indicate what area you might need to focus on more to hone your study skills. And if you do take that quiz, just so you know, it is geared more towards traditional age and in-person students. But hopefully it'll at least give you an idea of what you can expect as the area you need to concentrate on a little bit more. So Terry has a couple polls here for us, and if you guys can maybe start on poll 1, where do you study most frequently?
And you'll notice that down below you have the letters, so just select your letters. Okay, that'll be for poll 1.
Okay, it looks like so far we have a lot of letter C, which is the bedroom. And sometimes that is not the ideal place to study, and we'll get to that in a second. For some it is because it's quiet and you can kind of close yourself off from other family members, but sometimes it's a little too comfortable, and we'll cover in a second why that's perhaps not the most ideal study area. The second poll is when do you study? And as soon as yep, thanks, Terry. So as soon as you clear that, if people want to answer, when do you typically study? Okay, I see a lot of E's coming in, and that is good in a lot of ways because especially as adult students, you kind of have to get it in anytime you can. But we're also going to talk about why it might be beneficial to study during other times or even during a set time. And we'll go over that in the next slide, or the next 2 slides. The reason we say why are these answers beneficial and detrimental, because for some people, knowing when you study and having the right study time is a good thing, and it also can tell you that maybe there are some better opportunities for you to fit that studying in, and we'll go over that in a second. And I always think that this is a key topic to discuss with adult students, because I think it's hardest for us to try to find the time that studying works for us and the place that studying works for us. You have busy lives, you have families, you have kids, you have jobs, you have a lot going on, so we're going to try to make the best of that environment for you, which might be a little more difficult than sometimes for that traditional college student. So the ideal learning time, or learning environment, excuse me, first of all is usually a quiet learning environment. And some people prefer a little bit of background noise or music, and that's okay. We're not saying you have to eliminate that if you study best that way. But ideally, a place that's a little quieter, away from a lot of screaming children or family members, things of that ideal. We also prefer that there's no interruptions, or that you're free from distractions. Again, this can be anything from family members to your pet, but it also can be some of those self-imposed interruptions and distractions. And by that, I mean checking your email, checking your Facebook, your Twitter, checking the news on the internet. I know I personally get so distracted by other things that are open, other windows that are open on my computer, that it can make it hard to study sometimes. So if you're using the internet for your course, try to stick to it just for your course. Try to turn your phone off or leave it in another room. And if you're not using the internet at all for the coursework you're doing, for your paper that you're writing or reading that you're doing, try to turn the internet off altogether and kind of keep it out of your mind. Again, you want to try to find a place that you can concentrate. If you're distracted because the TV's on, or you're a neat freak like I am and you can't concentrate because your living room is dirty and you feel like you got to pick it up, try to relocate where you study. And for some people that means getting out of the house and studying at a library or a coffee house or something like that. You want a comfortable place, not too comfortable like the bed, because sometimes you'll fall asleep while you're reading. I know we've all done that. But also a place that is ideally only dedicated to study or work, or at least regularly dedicated to study or work. So some people use their kitchen table. Obviously you're not only going to work on that, but you know pretty regularly that's where you do your work. You want a place with good lighting, and you want to make sure you have some water and snacks available. It's good to try to avoid caffeine while you're studying, even though I know we've all used it to get through the day. But caffeine can not only make you jittery, it can give you highs and lows, and the water will kind of keep you a little steadier. The ideal learning time is typically when you're at your best. So if anyone kind of wants to indicate in the poll, when are you at your best? All right, it looks like we're a little across the board on this one. A lot of A's, early to mid-morning, and a few of you that said you don't know when you're at your best, and that's okay too. We just try to make you think about when do you do your best work, and try it out. Try working in the morning, try working at night, and you may notice you produce the best work at certain times of the day. The ideal time to study or to do your schoolwork is when you're at your best. Now, that being said, as an adult, sometimes doing your work when you're at your best is not always an option, because you may be doing your job or raising your kids or taking care of parents or something like that when you're at your best. So then we say if you can't do it when you're at your best, you want to at least make sure it's when your environment is at the best. And that's the things we kind of talked about in the previous slide. You also want to try to find a time when you have the time to commit to the tasks at hand. So in the beginning, a lot of you said that you kind of do your work in any free or open time that you have. And it's great to fit in little things when you have little blocks of time, maybe going over some flashcards, looking at your notes, getting a little bit of reading. But you also want to make sure that you have time to commit to the tasks that you have on hand. So if you know you have a big paper you need to concentrate, you want to make sure that you have a good chunk of time to concentrate on it. Okay, now when we think about ways to study, most people will say that the way to study, quote unquote, is to read the textbook and to highlight the information. So how many of you does this actually work for? You can check the check mark for yes and the X for no. Okay, we got quite a few checks for yes and a few for no. There's nothing wrong with reading a textbook and highlighting the information. That's the way I study best. But not everyone studies the best that way. What are some other ways that people maybe study? If you want to type some answers into the chat section of ways that you study that are maybe different from just reading the textbook. Any takers? Kristen, taking notes, yep. Jay, thinking the information through in your head, that's a good way to do it, to kind of make sure you understand what's going on. In 3 parts. Quick read first, then review, then fine-tune it. That's also a really good approach, Lisa. And audio version, Michelle, a lot of people feel that way. I think more and more with online, you'll be able to view videos and things like that to explain the information. Even things like this, if we can tape it and send it out to you so that you can hear it. A lot of people are auditory learners, which means they learn best by hearing, and online sometimes is a little bit difficult. Ellen, going through something physical to synthesize the information, that's really good too, especially if you're a hands-on learner, which again is sometimes difficult with the online environment. Well, let's go through a few brainstorms, other ways to study. Doing note cards is actually a really effective way to study, and I know some people may not have done them since elementary or middle school, but writing down the information, having keywords on front and definitions on back or things like that, it's actually really helpful because you can take them with you. So if you're sitting in the car at a doctor's appointment, waiting to pick up your kid from school, something like that, you always have them with you. Reading out loud is a good way to hear the information, since maybe you don't have an audio version. If you can at least read through your notes out loud or read through parts of the textbook out loud. Some people learn a lot better just by copying their notes over and over again. If you're an auditory learner, sometimes discussing topics with others is really helpful to be able to talk through the idea with someone else or teach the concept to someone else. And I actually had a father who told me that he was able to incorporate his daughters into his studying by trying to teach the concepts to them. And they obviously weren't getting the concepts to the same length that he was, but he was able to talk about it out loud, which made them feel like they were involved and participating in what Daddy was doing. And it also helped him learn the information better because he was discussing it and hearing it out loud. So it's another way that he suggested even to me as a way to kind of get your kids involved and to not feel like you're isolated from them, and to also learn the material. Flowcharts, timelines, pictures, anything visual like that is good for the visual learner. And then going through case studies and examples is also another way to kind of learn some of the information that's given to you. And if anyone has questions about these types of ways to study, we could certainly go through them at the end, or we could set up a time where we could discuss them in further length. One way to help you learn the best is to figure out what your learning style is. And we don't have time to do that today, but we are doing a presentation, I believe it's next week, on learning styles. So if you want to know a little bit more about which way you learn best and how to study associated with that, you could sign up for that presentation as well. Or again, let me know at the end and I can get some information to you. I wanted to go over some of the other things that we discussed at the beginning that were important things to know with study skills. The first one is time management, and it is one of the most difficult areas to feel like you're in control of, especially if you're an adult student. I know I feel like I'm running around with my chicken with my head cut off half the time between my son and my job and my family life. So it's sometimes very hard to figure out when do you fit in school into all that. So it's key to try to manage your time as best as possible. There's a lot of different assessment tools that we have available, counting the hours in your day, counting the hours in your week, rating your procrastination. These are all assessment tools that we have available through the Office of Academic Support. We could certainly send to you at the end if you want them. Counting the hours in your day and your week is just kind of trying to make you aware of where do you spend the hours of your day. And sometimes you don't realize what you're doing throughout the day until you kind of sit down and really chart it. There's a variety of tools to help you manage your time too. A weekly calendar or a monthly calendar, kind of putting all of your assignments out there for you to see. I know for me to be able to see what I have coming up that week, it really helps me focus. And a monthly calendar will help you see when your certain assignments are due. So to take a monthly calendar and put on it for every single class you're taking every single assignment you have. At first it's a little overwhelming, but then at least you know, oh my goodness, I have a really big week coming up in 2 weeks, so maybe I should get a jump start on certain things. To-do lists are also really other great way to manage your time. Excuse me. And then we have an assignment calculator available online as well, and that'll help you figure out how much time approximately it might take you to complete an assignment. So if you have a 15-page paper for that sociology class, the assignment calculator can kind of help you figure out how much time you need to complete that assignment, and then it'll help you figure out when you should really get started on it as opposed to just the night before. Some key time management principles. We always say study difficult subjects first, and a lot of times people put off the subjects they don't like or the difficult subjects until the end. But you're always at your best when you're your freshest, and you can process information more quickly that way. So study the difficult subjects first when you are at your freshest, or when you at least know you have the time to dedicate to them, kind of like we talked about earlier. So your difficult subjects shouldn't be the ones that you're trying to fit into little snippets of time, but more when you have a chunk of time to dedicate to them. The next bullet is to use distributive learning in practice. And what that basically means is, if you need to, study in a short time block and then take a short break, and then study another time block and then take another break. And this kind of helps you, keeps you from getting fatigued while you're studying, and it helps prevent you from wasting time. So sometimes if you study for too long, your mind starts to wander, you start to think about something else. But if you give yourself assigned breaks, it'll kind of prevent you from that time wasting. And then when you're taking the break, your brain's also still processing the information that you just went over. And when you get back from your break, you can kind of say, I don't remember that certain topic at all, or I'm a little confused about that, and you can kind of go back and review it. Like we talked about before, with time management, you want to be at your best. You want to make sure that you have the time to sleep and eat properly. Again, sleeping properly is sometimes hard for us. We try to fit everything in, so we're doing some late night studying, or we're getting up really early to get our stuff done before the kids wake up. We want to make sure that you're getting enough sleep and that you're eating properly to make sure that your brain's functioning well. And you also want to make sure that you have time to do the things you enjoy as well, because that's going to keep you fresh and keep you excited and having those good days. And again, you want to try to combine activities. So like we talked about before, using those snippets of time that you have. So bring in your notebook with you to the doctor's office, because you know you're probably going to have to wait half an hour, or bring your flashcards with you while you're waiting in line for something, or while you're sitting on the bus on the way to work. Something like that can really help you utilize your time management. The next topic I just wanted to cover is concentration. And sometimes it can be really hard to concentrate on school alone. You have so many things going on in your life, and sometimes school, although you want it to be a #1 priority, sometimes falls into the back burner as not being the #1 priority. If you're not sure what exactly distracts you or what's keeping you from concentrating, there is a self-quiz, and we have the link there. And you may just want to take that, and it'll help you figure out what's kind of keeping you from staying on track and concentrating the way that you would prefer to. Okay, this next slide has ways to concentrate, and it's a little busy. I know there's a lot of them, but I'm going to kind of go through each one at a time. They're kind of self-explanatory, but you want to set study goals before you begin. So making sure they're based on the number of pages or problems or number of pages of work that you need to get done. You want to kind of set a goal before you begin, and that'll give yourself an endpoint to your work, but it'll also make you feel like you accomplished something. And you want to set realistic goals. So if you have 150 pages to read for class, your goal shouldn't be, I'm going to sit down tonight and read 150 pages, because that's probably not going to happen, and then you're going to get disappointed with yourself. Instead, set a realistic goal for you. For one person, that may be, I'm going to get through 10 pages tonight. For someone else, that maybe I can get through 50 pages tonight. You want to make sure that you're setting a good goal for yourself, a realistic one and a fair one. Not cheating. Don't tell yourself only 10 pages if you don't get through 50, but set something that's a good goal for you to get through. You want to switch it up from time to time. So if you get really bored studying one particular subject matter for a long period of time, alternate between subjects or tasks. So before we had talked about doing a chunk of work and then taking a break, and then doing another chunk of work and taking a break. So each chunk of work that you do could be in a different class or even a different task within the same class. So this first time I'm going to read, and then I'm going to take a little break, and then I'm going to concentrate on course discussions, and then I'm going to take a little break, and then I'm going to go on to my writing assignment. Or I'm going to do a whole bunch of math, and then I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to try to do a little bit of science to change up what I'm thinking about and keep myself concentrating and not getting bored. It's helpful to have a notepad handy just so you can jot down any thoughts that come across your mind while studying. These can be thoughts related to studying, or if you're like me, they can be like, I need to get the laundry out of the washing machine, or I need to remember to get peanut butter at the grocery store. By having those notepads and writing it down, those little notes, those little thoughts aren't going to nag at you while you're studying. They're not going to make you think, oh my God, if I don't get the laundry out now, it's never going to get done. So you write yourself a note on the notepad. Keeping score your concentration by putting check marks on a sheet or piece of paper every time your mind wanders. For some students, they say this is helpful. For others, it can be a little distracting in and of itself. But if you kind of make a check every time your mind wanders, at the end of your study session, you may see just how truly your mind really does wander, and it can kind of help you think of other ways to concentrate a little bit better. Or day 2 or 3 of trying to concentrate better, you may notice, I only had 1 check mark today, I'm doing great. So that's one way to kind of help you hone in on concentration. Studying with a pencil or a pen in your hand, preparing to take notes, that's a great tool if you are a handwriting note taker. If you prefer to take your notes in Microsoft Word or online or something like that, just making sure that you have that open or have whatever format it is you have ready to be used. We already talked about this earlier, but minimizing distractions, phone, internet, instant messaging, Twittering, Facebook, any of that stuff. Starting with shorter study periods and building to longer periods is another way to improve your concentration. The first day that you study, maybe you can only do 30 minutes. The next day, try to do 35. By the next week, maybe you want to try to do an hour. If you gradually add on, it'll help your concentration. And again, keeping in mind doing what fits best for your schedule as well. We had already kind of talked about this, but again, taking a break. And sometimes you want to have a goal for taking a break. So maybe you're going to go eat that cookie that's been staring at you during your break, or perhaps you're just going to watch 10 minutes of news really quickly to see what's going on, or you're going to check that Facebook for 10 minutes. Whatever that reward may be for you might help get you through to the next break time. And make the most of those rest periods. Do something different. Sometimes it helps to get up and walk around, get a glass of water, do a little stretching, do a little yoga pose, something to kind of get your body moving and to kind of keep you flowing and making the most of that break. Reading comprehension is the last big area that we kind of wanted to cover, and a lot of people do ask about reading comprehension skills, and those are kind of something that are hard for everyone to develop, and everyone has different reading comprehension and different reading styles. But one thing to do is before you read, we say activate your prior knowledge, and what that means is just brainstorm or do a group discussion or maybe do some mind mapping. Basically, before you start reading, look at the topic you're reading about and say, what do I already know about this? What have I already learned in class? Or what do I know from common knowledge? Or what do I think I know? And just kind of write those notes down or draw a little map of like, here's the topic and this is what I think or don't think about it. If you have the ability to do a group discussion with other people you know, or sometimes you can do those online. You can ask your professor who might be interested in the study group, or you can send a message through the class to everyone to say, is anyone interested in a study group or something like that. And you can do a group discussion even through online courses. And sometimes that'll help you get ready to read. Now your mind's thinking about the topic. You kind of know what you do know, what you don't know, what questions you may have, and you're ready to read about it. While you're reading, you want to read for short bursts. So read for 35 to 40 minutes at a time. Now I know for some people that is not a short burst. For some people reading for 40 minutes is difficult. So build up if you have to. So if 35 to 40 minutes seems unrealistic for you, start at 15 or 20 and kind of build up until you can get to maybe that 35, 40 minute mark. Once you read for that, take a quick break. If you read any longer than that, unless you're reading like a novel that you're really, really interested in, your mind's going to start wandering, and we're going to come back to some of those same concentration difficulties we had talked about before. So read a little bit and then take a quick break. Monitor your comprehension. So ask yourself every once in a while, what did I just read and what have I learned? Because we all know that we've put in those 40 minutes before and then not had a clue what we read after those 40 minutes. So every few pages or so, just say, what am I learning? Do I understand what I'm learning? Do I need to go back and reread this, or do I need to highlight this? Or maybe even take a note that I've read this 3 times and I still don't understand the concept, so I need to ask someone or look it up further. You can rephrase each paragraph in your own words. That can get a bit tedious if you do every single paragraph for every single reading, so I don't necessarily recommend that. But particularly paragraphs that seem really important or subjects that you don't quite understand. If you read what's written in the textbook and then say to yourself, now I need to kind of put this paragraph in my own words, it'll help you realize if you really understand the concept or not. And then any sentence that's difficult to understand or is really complex, sometimes if you read it out loud and hear it, it'll help you understand what that sentence means a little better. It'll also stick into your mind a little bit differently because you've read it out loud. And then after you read, you just want to summarize and review the reading so that you can understand what you've read and make sure that you know what you're reading. There is at this link what's called a reading critically form, and you may want to check it out. It's a way to kind of just make sure that you're summarizing what you're reading, you're understanding what you're reading. They'll give you some pointers on how to review what you've read. But again, you just want to do mental check-in with yourself and make sure that you know what you're actually reading about. And then you want to organize your notes by connecting ideas. So it's called a concept map. Basically, you want to start with a topic. You can kind of draw a line to what the next area is that you're thinking about. Maybe draw a bubble or write about it there. Then how does that connect to the next thing? Making sure that it's all kind of connecting within your head. Okay, so I've given you guys a lot of information. I know I said I would talk about writing skills. Writing skills are really difficult to handle in a group. They're a little bit more something that can be focused on one-on-one. So I want to give you some resources that are available at Empire State, and these cover a lot of different areas. But if you are concerned with writing, the Writing Center in particular is really helpful. And there's also some introductory reading and writing courses that the school does offer. So you want to maybe check out those if you have some concerns with the writing. And then some of these other links are really helpful and really good for anyone that is having any sort of study skills problems. The library is available to all of you all the time. I highly recommend checking it out if you haven't done so yet. Not only is it good for research, but there is a chat area in there, and you can chat with a librarian if you have a question or you're not sure how to research a topic. They're really helpful. There is a link to some study skills there. For those of you that don't know about the tutoring services that are available through Empire State, you might want to check out those links as well. We have Smart Thinking, which is an online tutoring service. It's available 24/7, and it's free to Empire State students. There are tutoring resources there specific to subjects, and there's also the ability for you to submit a paper that you've written and get feedback on it. So if you have a big paper coming up for a class and you can manage to finish it a couple days earlier, you can submit it to Smart Thinking. They'll review the paper for you, get back to you with their comments and reviews, and then you can kind of take those into consideration and make changes if needed before you submit your paper for a grade. We also offer peer tutoring, and that's for specific classes, and if you're looking for a tutor who has taken the class and specific to Empire State. Smart Thinking are tutors that aren't specific to Empire State, but they cover a lot of our basic courses, so I usually encourage you to go there first. But if you can't find the tutoring you need at Smart Thinking, the peer tutor might be a good option for you, and you can check out that website for more information. And then always the Office of Academic Support is available to you. We can be reached at that email address. You can call the college if you want to speak to someone. And we're available to kind of help you figure out anything that you need assistance with. So a lot of the topics I discussed today, but then also maybe things we didn't discuss today, or if you want something a little more in-depth, you certainly can email us at that email address. And I'll just put in the chat session here my email as well. And if after this presentation you have specific questions about anything that we covered. Oops. Sorry, Terry, I think I just sent that to you. Let me forward that on. If you have any questions about specific things we covered today or certain study skills, you can feel free to email me, and we'll cover those as well via email, or we can set up a phone call if you need it. So I think we're at the half-hour mark. I know that we covered a lot of information so far. So why don't we take a break and let's see what questions that you guys have for me. So I think, Terry, you had said if people can just kind of raise their hand for questions that they may have.
Yeah, please do. Ask any questions, even if you think it doesn't necessarily apply to today's session. You know, we'll do our best to answer the question. So please feel free. Right ahead, Michelle. Why don't you submit your question? Great, thank you. Sarah, do you see that question? Because I can actually answer that as well. Best way to organize a study group for CDL. A study group specifically for the subject that you're in, like for instance if you're in a math class and do you want to do a study group for that particular course? Is that what you're talking about, Michelle? Okay. You know, Sarah might add, you know, maybe a different perspective, but I suggest to students that you can send out through course mail within the course asking if anybody's interested in doing a study group. I know I had a group of students at one time that were looking for, actually one or two students looking for a tutor. I unfortunately did not have a tutor available and suggested that they do that, and so they met as a group on the phone once a week. So that would be, in my opinion, the best way to at least organize it, just reach out through course mail. Sarah, any other suggestions?
The only other suggestion I would have is that I think in most classes there's also like a student discussion board section. At least I know there is for planning and finalizing. So you could also post in that student discussion board section to see if anyone's interested in joining a study group. So same idea as Terry, but just maybe another way to try to reach people would be through the discussion board section. And if you're really having problems and you're not sure, you could always ask your professor if anyone else has mentioned an interest in something like that, and he or she may have a few people that have kind of thrown the same idea out to her.
Sarah, were you talking about the discussion board within the course itself or within the student community space?
You could do the student community space as well, but I think each course has a discussion board.
Correct. Okay. With the student community space, the only thing that I would just be aware of, if you do post it in the student community space, you're hitting everybody that is enrolled at Empire State College. And you might be able to do a study group, but they might not necessarily be in your section, which can, well, I guess it can cause a problem, maybe not. You know, instructors do, you know, have different approaches, so just be aware of that. The other thing I will say, where I find, you know, certain courses that I guess I have a higher request level for tutors, I will actually approach one of my tutors and ask a tutor to do a study group. Meaning that the tutor actually oversees the group, and I assign, you know, up to 6, 7, 8 students to this tutor, and the tutor will set up a time in the evening, and they would meet using Illuminate, what we're using today, to do a study group or to go over some assignments. So that is another option. If in fact, you know, you come across that in your course, that a lot of the students are uncomfortable doing a study group because they feel that they really need additional assistance, you can always call me and I can see if I can set that up. So that is another option.
While we're waiting for more questions, and please keep them coming if you have them, one thing that I just wanted to make sure that I touched on before we end today is that study skills, like everything, are unique and personal to each person. So a lot of the ideas that we put on today, take them for what they're worth, try them out, but if they don't work for you, then they don't work for you, and that's okay. But don't be afraid to try different and unique ways of studying, and you know, if it doesn't work day one, don't try it again, or if it feels like it might work for you, give it a shot. But we try to make you think outside the box when it comes to studying, and to know that each of you are unique. So the way Ellen may study may be completely different from the way Kristen studies, and that's okay. Looks like we have a question from Jay. Different examples of effective memory strengthening techniques. Well, one thing I've heard that I don't know if other people have heard is that if you reread your notes within 15 minutes of taking them, sometimes those notes will switch from your short-term memory to your long-term memory, which is good because you want things in your long-term memory when you're going down the line to write that paper or take a test. So the more you can kind of review your notes and go over them is going to help them stick in your memory better. I'm not sure if I know offhand of other memory strengthening techniques. Do you know of anything, Terry?
Well, I guess the one that I have actually seen work, you know, you mentioned just reread your notes, is actually maybe rewrite the notes. And sometimes as you're rewriting the notes, other things are coming to mind about that particular maybe concept, or, you know, that assignment, or, you know, whatever that, you know, chapter that you reviewed. So maybe, you know, rewriting it a couple times might just reinforce, okay, the information. The other thing is, you know, flashcards. I don't know if you mentioned that, Sarah. You know, possibly, I don't know, memory strengthening, I don't know, seek out some additional information outside of the textbook in the course, and maybe reinforcing it there, you know, just looking at the information differently, maybe explain differently, describe differently. I don't know, Sarah, do you think those apply?
I definitely think those apply, and I would also say the other one would be, for some people, speaking out loud helps them stick in the memory better. So it's all kind of what learning style fits best for you. So if you're a hands-on learner, trying to do something physical with what it is you're trying to remember. If you prefer pictures, sometimes drawing a picture or a graph of what it is that you're studying. And for some people, speaking about the subject or just hearing themselves speak about the subject is helpful. So kind of try a little bit of all those to see what fits best for you and what works best for you.
Well, another thing, Sarah, I'm going to add to that, like you said, talking or speaking out loud. You know, maybe a spouse or a friend saying, you know, I kind of need to talk about this. Can I explain this particular, you know, concept to you? And just speaking to someone about it can actually highlight or maybe reinforce it, but also, you know, highlight, well, I guess maybe I don't know as much as I thought I did. Let me go and review those notes again, or let me go and reread that chapter, and then can I come back to you again and explain it to you? You know, because if you can explain it clearly to somebody else, you know, then my guess is that you've already, you know, you've got it memorized, okay, and you understand it. So I would take that a step further. So Jay,
that's a great suggestion.
Thank you. Sarah, what are some of the questions that you see? Great, Jay. What are some of the questions that you know have been asked of you about study skills? Not today, but you know, maybe, you know, throughout your career here with Empire State College.
I think in general the biggest one is time management, and I think for adults that's the hardest to kind of wrap your head around because you do have so many other things going on, and I think just knowing that that you're not sure how to manage everything that's going on in your life is kind of the first step. I know it sounds like cliche, but knowing there's a problem is the first step to rectifying it. And really just making sure that you have a schedule. For some people, color coding that schedule works because they like to see the different colors. Taking a list, trying just to figure out what works best for you and your family, I think is the biggest key to being able to study well, and knowing how do you fit that time in for studying? How do you make sure that it's a priority without ignoring the other members of your family and the job that you may have, or medical appointments you may have or other time commitments. So sometimes it's great to have a dedicated time to study if that works for you. The other is kind of making making use of those small snippets of time that we had talked about. I think the other most common question usually is the reading comprehension, and for some people it's just they find it boring to read textbooks, and I think we've all been there. So to use some different techniques in reading and to not always get caught up in feeling like you have to read everything and reading it as extensively as you may think that you have to. And that may be a no-no to say in front of some instructors, but if it comes down to the wire and you just can't read all 200 pages that are required for that course, implementing some of those other ways of skim reading, looking over some of the highlighted points, concentrating on reading what really doesn't make sense to you as opposed to topics that you already understand, things of that nature. I just think that some students get really overwhelmed with the amount of reading that can be available in a CDL course.
I have a question. How many of you actually have a calendar? Like, not necessarily even for your assignments, but a calendar in general. You know, for instance, you know, I'm taking a graduate course this term, and I have 2 children, and I have lots of workshops that I facilitate as well as present, and I've got lots of meetings and stuff, and sometimes they kind of all overlap. And so I have this master calendar that I put everything on just to make sure that I've got it covered. Like my assignments, though, I don't put like great detail, but I might just put that I know an assignment is due on this day, and it's just in front of me, knowing that, oh geez, you know, I've got soccer and basketball here and this and that, and I've got a meeting here, when am I going to fit it in? So a visual for me works. So I see Michelle uses a calendar. Does anybody else use a calendar at all, even just for a visual? Just to get an idea of what your week? Okay. So my guess is if you're not using a calendar, I might suggest, you know, don't get, you know, use it, I mean, I guess don't get so detailed with a calendar, but just something that you can look at it visually, go, my week, you know, is completely packed. I have, you know, maybe an hour here, 2 hours here, and then in your mind, you know where you can maybe fit in some of your reading, some of your homework assignments.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Terry. And I would add on to that to use whatever calendar works best for you. So I'm a little old school, and I like having a paper calendar and being able to write things in. But if using your email calendar through work, your Outlook, maybe that works best for you. Or maybe using your iPhone has a calendar feature on it that works best for you. You know, whatever's going to work well for you in your lifestyle. And that's the biggest thing, like I want to keep reinforcing with study skills, is to try different things out and to figure out what works best for you, your learning style, and also for your lifestyle and your family and your other time commitments. Maybe being able to see everything on your work calendar is great for you. For others, that may be distracting because once you're at home, you can't access it as easily as you would like to. So try different things out. But I definitely think some sort of calendar is a great way, not only to see what's going on in your personal life and how it may conflict with school, but if you're taking 2, 3, 4 courses, sometimes you may not realize how much your assignments overlap. And it's good to know that if you have like 5 assignments due at the same time so that you can prepare and get some of them done out of the way in advance.
Yeah, and Kristen, you asked about a template. You know, there's templates, you know, on the internet, and like Sarah mentioned, you know, I don't know if you have a phone. I just use, believe it or not, just a regular spiral, plain ordinary calendar. I have one for my children, my family activities, and I have one for my work and schooling, and I bring both of them out and look. And sometimes I'll actually just cross-reference them, you know, so I know. But those calendars go with me everywhere. I mean, like everywhere. Because if I'm at some place and someone says, well, can we meet on such and such, if I don't have those calendars with me, that's a problem. But if I open up the calendar and go, well, geez, I have an assignment due this date, I'm going to need X amount of time, I could say, no, I can do it X. So I would say, you know, you could use a template. You could just go and just, you know, print one off. But personally, I just go to Staples, quite honestly, and just go buy, you know, the $5 calendar if you can, and just, like I said, bring that with you, you know, and try to manage it the best way that works for you. You know, like I described might not work for you, but maybe try it out and come up with a way that is comfortable.
There's also, if you're not sure about, you know, if you just want an easy template for a calendar, if you go into Microsoft Word, usually one of the templates that's available is a blank calendar, and you can just go in there and type into it. If you have a color printer, I know students who put each course in a different color so that when you're looking at the calendar, you can see like, oh, blue is family intervention and, you know, red is statistics or whatever, and then you can kind of see which course is which. And Jay, I think you had asked, and then kind of got the answer to your question. But some people want just the master calendar, some want a daily one, some want a weekly one. Whatever combination works best for you. I tend to have a big master calendar for the month, and then I always have a to-do list. And usually it's intended to be a daily to-do list. Sometimes it turns into a weekly to-do list. But for me, I love the satisfaction of crossing something off the list too. It just is like, ah, I accomplished something. So I think doing both and having a combination is also a really helpful tool.
You know, the other thing too is I'm going to mention, you know, we talk about studying and study skills and the environment, the best time. You know, when I was finishing up my bachelor's, I literally, it was very difficult for me to carve out time, you know, that was, you know, set in stone. So, you know, I'm a pretty flexible individual, but it works for me, but it might not necessarily work for you guys. But, you know, I had to go to a lot of practices, a lot of basketball practices, a lot of soccer practice where I had like 2-hour chunks. I had to sit at bus stops for like, you know, a half hour. So I would take that time to read, not to write a paper, not to study something that was really difficult, although I did do that with stats because I just didn't have, you know, I didn't have any other alternative. But, you know, look at where you're sitting and where you're idling. You know, can you carve out, you know, 15, 20 minutes to actually read and take notes? You know, so look at that as well instead of maybe trying to look at a calendar. You know, my books literally went with me everywhere. And so if I had the opportunity at that time, I pulled the books out. So that's another way to look at it too.
I think we're getting close to the 3 o'clock mark, and I don't want to keep people for longer than need be, but does anyone have any other questions or anything that you'd like Terry and I to cover in the group?
Okay, so I guess if there's no other questions, if they come up, you know, throughout the day, you know, please feel free to email me those questions, and Sarah and I will get back to you. Otherwise, have a nice day. We will be conducting another Illuminate session next week on learning styles, correct, Sarah? Thursday, I believe, the 29th.
That's correct.
And that's from 2 to 3.
1. Yep.
Correct. So hopefully this was helpful, and again, like I said, if there's any questions that pop up during the day or later in the week or whenever, just email me those questions. Or Sarah, I believe Sarah gave her email address, and I'll do the same.
I did send my email address out, and please feel free to email me at any point with any questions you have. The Office of Academic Support is always here to help you guys in any way we can. So if you can get a hold of Terry or I, that's great, or you can send an email to the main CDL student and they'll make sure that we get it. And just, like I said, try things out, be flexible with the way you study, and if you get stuck or you're kind of at a point where you're not sure what to do next, reach out for help and we can kind of help work you through that.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Sarah, don't go anywhere, okay, after we're done? I just want to talk to you briefly.
Okay, I'll stay here.
Okay. All right, thank you, everyone.